Get your steins at the ready, because it's time for another Oktoberfest beer. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, it is time for another Oktoberfest beer. I nearly said finally time. In YouTube world, this has just come out 2 days after the previous one, so there's been no gap, but it's actually been nearly a week since I had the previous one because, frankly, I just didn't feel very well and didn't feel like I could do it justice, but I'm back, I'm alive. I wasn't really that unwell, just a bit, you don't feel like drinking beer when you're a bit sometimes, and that is where I was at. However, enough of that, it is time for one of the big ones, the Paulaner Oktoberfest beer, and this, if memory serves, is the most consumed over Oktoberfest. It's the biggest one in terms of volume, and to be honest, Paulaner, well, last time out we had the Hofbrau, and I said about that Hofbrau, they were always very good. I just often didn't order them if there was something from another big German brewer available for whatever reason. I don't really know why that is. Paulaner, well, safe is the word I'd use in my mind for them. Every time I see something from them on tap, I'm like, almost definitely go for it. Not because I think it's always going to be the best, but because, I don't know, there's just something about everything they produce that makes me I never regret it, let's put it that way. So I'm expecting good things. I have had this one before, but last year's version, I think I reviewed it, although I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but I don't remember it anyway, so it doesn't really matter, and it will change a bit year on year as well, of course. So yeah, this is the Paulaner Oktoberfest beer, weighing in at 6% on the nose. It's a touch lighter than the previous one, which I think was 6.2 or 6.3. I'll be honest, I've forgotten what I scored on the other one. There'll be a sheet, an overlay, probably at the end, or maybe just we'll save that for a final video, actually. I'm undecided yet, but anyway, I'm not considering what I scored others where I can forget about it, if that makes sense. But yeah, anyway, let's just get straight into it. Quick look at the bottle. As far as I'm aware, this is exactly the same as it was last time out, last year. It looks very nice. It's pretty standard Paulaner stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's traditional, that's exactly what we expect, and I, for one, am very thirsty, so let's get it open. As always, not in a stein, as I said in the intro. Actually, I'm doing all of these out of this one glass because, well, I don't have an appropriate stein for the volume of beer that I'm consuming. This looks a bit silly having it half full, and, you know, just this glass, yes, it's maybe not traditional, but it always produces the best a beer has to offer, freshly washed and rinsed every time, as you can probably see in there, so everything is always absolutely even. Let's do it. The aroma in the room already, I have to say, is good. It's a bit more, I'd say, regular German beer. Doesn't feel distinctly Oktoberfesty at this point, but let's get it in the glass and see how it goes. As with all of these, I'm trying my best to pour them, you know, a bit vigorously, get a little bit of that carbonation out of there, slowly top it up there onwards, and then, as before, set it down, let it settle, get the rest of the beer from the bottle into the glass, and then we'll really get into it. Okay, that really didn't take any time at all. That is the whole beer, and set the bottle to the side out of the way, and we're marking on appearance, and I have to say, I don't know if there's going to be much difference between any of these on camera because they are all in effect of the same style, but just the clarity, the hue, the consistency of the foam, everything about this rings yes to me. The only downside, I don't know if you can see, the foam head is just a little bit bubbly, a little bit, you know, overdone. Again, that could be me. I'll try and give it a little swizz around in the glass, see if it kind of becomes more uniform. It has a touch. In general though, appearance wise, straight off the bat, very impressed, very appetizing. It is what I envisage when I think about these beers, and as a result, well, it's going to have to be a 9, just because that head maybe wasn't as luxe as maybe it could have been, but otherwise, yeah, in the glass, it's a 9 straight away. I feel like that matched the Hofbrau, but I can't really remember. But anyway, looks fantastic. Head's depleting a little bit quick, but I'm going to stay with it. It's a 9 because the actual beer itself, spot on. 100%, just minor deduction for that head. Right then, on to the aroma. Huge, big, bready, massive malt sweetness. Feels like a glazed loaf, if that's even a thing. If that made like fresh bread with like a honey glaze on top. Very mild, traditional hop character coming through. Exactly what we'd expect. Bit more floral this one, less citrusy, a few more, yeah, say more kind of floral and grassy notes, I'd say. And there's something in there. It almost smells like, you know, that aroma of freshly cooked donuts at a fairground, ironically, because Oktoberfest is part of a travelling fairground kind of thing. It's got that, you know, that kind of, you can smell it from a mile away. You're instantly going, ooh, that smells a bit of all right. You know, that deep fried doughy thing in there, the sweetness, the sugar, all that, you know, there's a lot of parallels between the two. And as a result, the aroma is blowing me away. Is it good enough for a full house though? It's hitting every nail on the head, but it doesn't necessarily have like an absolute instant kind of bit of extra specialness, if that makes sense. This is everything as I would expect it. No faults, no nothing, but at the same time, a 10 for a score of 10, really, you're going to need something just a bit extra somehow, which is probably not going to happen in any of these, to be honest. They're all very traditional styles, but as a result, it's a 9. 9 for 9 on that. So, yeah, there we have it. And it is time now for the real test, the taste test. So, Oktoberfest 2023, Paulaner's Oktoberfest beer. Let's do it. Cheers. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That is so good. That is so good. It's malty, sweet, big, indulgent, bready, and hyper refreshing all at the same time. And then there is actually there's a bit of hot bitterness that seems to play with the carbonation in it a bit and just produces something that kind of almost as a palate cleanser halfway through. Up front you get that big sweetness, then you get the bitter note, kind of stop it getting too far, and then that mild, bready, just fresh bread sweetness comes in at the end, and you're left with this. Well, frankly, it is just obscenely good. I just want to drink more of it. Yeah, I mean, I said it when the bottles arrived. I was absolutely hyped for Oktoberfest because I knew I was going to just have a fantastic time because I just like all of the beers of that style, and yes, absolutely incredible. This could be a highlight, but it isn't without a fault, and we'll get into that in a moment. But fault's relative, it's still absolutely incredible. And like I said in the previous video, when I'm being really pernickety with these, it's because I'm pitching them against 4 or 5 of the beers, and again that's something we'll come on to in a minute, literally head to head. So I've got to find tiny bits of things I think, oh, that could have been better, and therefore mark a point down. Otherwise it's going to be 10s across the board and it's a pointless exercise. So yeah, on to that point though, 4 or 5 other beers. If anyone saw my kind of short little roll when the beers arrived, I had 5 of them sat here, so we're going to do all the legit Oktoberfest beers. Well, it turns out that was a lie, maybe. Because in fact there are 6 official beers of Oktoberfest. There is Hofbrau, which we did before, the Paulaner, which we've got here now. There is Spartan, there is Hacker Shore, and there is Lowenbrau. And then there's Augustina, who traditionally, it seems, don't release their Oktoberfest beer until very, very late on, basically when the event is happening, which means I couldn't buy it beforehand. I don't know if it's going to be released in the UK and how easy it's going to be to get and how much I'm ultimately going to have to spend to get just a bottle or 2 of it. It just depends where it ends up, if I'm honest. So, we're definitely doing the 5 that are currently available right now. Whether it's the full 6 or not, we're going to have to wait and see. But we'll put it in the end. You'll have to wait and find out, because I don't know yet, honestly. Anyway, that's all done and dusted. Let's pack that away until we know a bit more in a few weeks' time. But for now, top to bottom taste test on the Oktoberfest 2023 Paulaner Oktoberfest beer, which is the official name, I think. Yes, Oktoberfest beer. Let's get into this. So, initially, tip of the tongue, nice, sweet, floral, kind of honeysuckle. Think heavily floral honey on the tip of the tongue there. Very nice indeed. Decent amount of carbonation as well, which is probably why it's looking a bit flat, because the beer is holding on to that in this glass, and due to my inevitably terrible pouring technique. But then kind of first third of the tongue, I think sweetbreads, donuts, and a good amount of that kind of mineral water quality that we talk about a lot when we talk about either German or Scottish beers. For some reason, they're the two that really stands out in. But yeah, it's got that, not as much as the one before. I'm trying to remember too many German brewery names at once here. It was the Hofbrau that we did first. That had a bit more mineral quality. This is just a touch less, but it's still nice. It's there, it's balancing. I think unless you were dissecting it, you wouldn't necessarily notice it, but it is there, and it helps just balance off that kind of sweet bread thing up front, so it doesn't become too sweet and just overpoweringly sickly, I guess. In the middle of the tongue then, the bready note intensifies. It becomes rich, big, proper, like I said before about on the aroma, that kind of honey glazed loaf, like fresh bread thing. Absolutely beautiful. And you think it's just going to get bigger, sweeter, over the top almost. And then just as it kind of tips into the back of the tongue, you get that breaker, a load of hop bitterness, carbonation spikes around, as I said, as well, together, and they kind of create this nice palate cleanser just before really you kick into the aftertaste and stop tickling those big taste buds at the back of the tongue, because on the very back of the tongue, actually, you kind of get another big spritz from the carbonation. It's very cleansing still. I thought there was actually a lot there, but now I'm analysing it, not really, until the aftertaste, of course, which is, as with a lot of these beers, where a lot of the real magic happens, because starts off bitter, very bitter actually. It's not over the top, but it's, you know, it's not messing around. It's not just a sweet treat. Big hop bitterness kicking in right there, and then it starts to fall away. And as it falls away, it starts to reveal traits of the donuts come back in. It's almost like, it's really reminding me of churros actually. I know it's basically the same thing as a donut, but I don't know why. It just, that's the word that really comes to mind. It's that sweet, doughy, but maybe not overly sugared thing. And then really long term, you're just left with this light bitterness that is the perfect kind of booster for you to pick up your big stein if you're at Oktoberfest and take another massive swig, because it really does keep you coming back for more. Now then, we need to rate the taste. Ultimately, it's not going to be a 10 out of 10 because, firstly, that head is just dying in the glass. I keep trying to keep it with us, and it's not having any of it. There you go, even now. There's loads of carbonation in there, but it's just not willing to hold on. Now, again, the glassware isn't correct, my pouring method, probably terrible, but I would expect just a bit more out of it. And the other thing, like we said about the Hofbraus, you've probably just been able to see, whilst you don't want a big, thick beer for Oktoberfest, again at 6%, I just think it's not even the consistency of the beer itself, it's just in the mouth, the mouthfeel doesn't strike you as incredible. Let's say that much. There's nothing wrong with it. You wouldn't immediately sip it and go, that's horrible and thin and, you know, whatever. But ultimately, for a 10 out of 10, it needs to have something a bit extra, doing something that the others don't, and it's not doing it in that regard. However, the flavour profile for the rest of it is absolutely stunning, so it's another 9. So there we go then, 9s across the board for the Paulaner. Pretty confident that puts it with a decent lead over the Hofbrau. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I think they only sent 2 bottles of these in the pack that I bought, which is a bit of a shame, but maybe I'll be able to get some more. They did drop these into Aldi stores last year, kind of beginning of to mid-October, if memory serves correctly, so you might be able to pick one up at an absolute bargain if you keep your eyes out, and if they happen to do that again. But even if not, and you can't wait, ordering one from Beers of Europe or whoever else happens to be selling them, that's where I got mine from, by the way, yeah, is well worth a go, because that is absolutely delicious. Have you tried it? Let me know in the comments below what you think. And yeah, well, until the next time for an Oktoberfest beer, that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you'll be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.